As we continue an extended focus on one another passages in the New Testament letters, I want us to take a look this morning at the word admonish, and it's actually connected to the word teach in Colossians chapter 3, verse 16. So there's a teach and admonish one another, and I really want to focus on the word admonish. So Colossians chapter 3, verse 16, let the message of Christ dwell among you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. So teach and admonish one another, with an emphasis this morning on the word admonish. Sometimes the word admonish in the English language is used as a warning. That's not how I want to use it today. The Greek word is noutheto. And the beginning of that, the nous or the nous means mind, and then the theto part means to place inside of, or to lay down, or to put down, or set down. And so in the Greek, the word that's translated into admonish, noutheto, means to place inside of the mind. So think inception. So admonish is similar to teaching. So teaching and admonishing are put together in this passage, in this Colossians 3:16 verse, a reminder for us to teach and admonish one another. They're connected, but they're not the same. Teach or teaching is didasko, that's instruction. And then admonish, noutheto, is to place in the mind. So instructing and then placing things in one another's mind. So admonish isn't the same as instruction. Instruction is information. Teaching is instruction, it's giving information, but admonishing is putting something in our mind. So what I just did just now is I taught for a moment, right? Because to talk about a Greek word or some Greek words and the root words and the derivation of those words, that's instruction. But I want to admonish now, if I could. I want to see if maybe we would be open to have an idea placed on our minds. But this isn't the movie Inception. In the movie Inception, ideas were secretly placed in the subconscious or unconscious minds of people. This morning, I'd like to invite us to collectively open our minds. Isn't that the way to learn and to grow? Isn't that the way to be admonished? For something to be placed in our minds, we first must open our minds. So shall we? There's a story about a flock of wild geese that were flying south for winter. This story is attributed to Søren Kierkegaard. He was a 19th century Danish philosopher and theologian. As the birds were heading to their winter destinations, an early snowstorm forced them to take shelter. They spotted a farm with an open barn, landed, and took shelter in the barn overnight. The farmer was quite surprised to find that he left the barn door open and that the barn was now occupied by a flock of wild geese. But he took compassion on the snowbound birds and provided food for them. The snowstorm lasted several days and the geese decided to stay put. The farmer continued to feed them. When the storm finally broke, the geese debated about whether or not to continue on their journey. Because the farmer had been so kind, they decided to stay a while. The farmer thought it was quite a novelty to have a flock of wild geese at his disposal, so he continued to provide for them. The arrangement worked for all parties involved, and the geese decided to stay the entire winter. When spring finally arrived, the birds had become acclimated to their new environment. The farm was quite a comfortable place to stay. There were ponds they could swim in, and they had plenty of food. So instead of flying north, the geese decided to stay the spring and summer too. Before long, this flock of wild geese had become completely domesticated. The seasons came and went, but the geese remained on the farm. And as the years went by, the geese began to feel a little guilty about what they had done to themselves. They'd see other wild geese fly south in the winter and remember the days when they had journeyed forth with that same reckless abandon. So, to ease their guilt, they devised a plan. Each year, as winter approached, the oldest goose stood before the family of geese to tell the story of the former days when they used to fly south for the winter. He recounted the trials and difficulties, as well as all of the great joys they encountered when they were wild. So here's the admonishment. My sisters and my brothers, have we gotten tame? Have we gotten so used to programs and rhythms and facilities that meet all of our needs that we've forgotten who we really are? Have we forgotten how wild we are to be? Have we forgotten that what this is all about, the movement of Messiah is all about, the anointed one? The Messiah, this word Mashiach, means anointed, the anointed one, the one that places these new ideas in our minds. You see, because my sisters and my brothers, we have been given the mind of Christ. And we have all these ways that we were shown from 2,000 years ago about how the earliest followers of Messiah treated one another. But have we gotten so tame that we think we're supposed to just have our programs and have our facilities and just read stories and study original Greek words about how we used to treat one another this way? These New Testament passages are not words frozen in time that we are just supposed to study about. They are inspirations to keep us wild. May you realize that the next phase is not to determine when we can meet in large group gatherings. Our primary task is to believe that we are being built into a building and to live out our faith. Let's not just study about when our sisters and our brothers before us used to do these things. Let's do these things. Let's teach and admonish one another. Wild geese, when they fly together, they fly in a V formation, and the one in front has the hardest job with all the wind resistance, and then when they get tired, they go to the back, and then somebody else takes their turn, because you see, in community, we take turns leading, and we support each other through tough times. We are meant to fly. And then, of course, when I think of wild geese, I think of Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver was a 21st century groundbreaking poet, a teacher of many, including myself, and her poem, Wild Geese, it got on the inside. Do you know? I'd like to read it now, and then we will hear her read it. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. So my sisters and my brothers, may the Lord bless you and keep you and be gracious to you and turn his face towards you and shine his light on you and grant you with his peace. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things.